It was sort of thinking about my grandfather's experience and researching that and coming across this story in history that hadn't ended well for the couple involved. And I thought, I want to write them a happy ending.
This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle and paperback. You too can become a sponsor of Stories, The True and the Fictional by heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/STTATF or follow the link in the show notes. Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Story Chat. Today we have a guest that I know. My mother and my sister will be watching this episode for the first time. This will be the first time they watch this podcast that I've been doing for 2 years.
What? They don't actually listen to it every week. We're up to like 110 episodes. Jeez, where's the support and the love? Come on. I'll be having stern words with your mother next time I see her, Jamie.
Yes, they acted super excited. I wouldn't be surprised if they're hanging outside my window right now, ears pressed. Oh, I just heard a tap on the door, so yes, they are. Jennifer Mistmorgan, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks to your mum too and to your sister. It's great to be here.
Just before we dive into these icebreakers we love to give to everyone.
Yep.
For those that don't know, so not my mother, not my sister, not me, who is Jennifer Mistmorgan?
What a question! As everyone contain multitudes, but I'm a writer of romantic historical fiction set in and around World War II, and I've just released my debut novel called Heart in the Clouds. And so, I write fiction. I write fiction by night. By day, I am a content and copywriter. So I do sort of writing for hire for, whoever needs it during the day. And then by night, actually by very early morning, I type out the creative words for my stories. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
have you ever had someone's work that you've looked at and gone, you know what? This looks pretty cool. I might say, no, this doesn't meet the current copyright standards, steal it and then put it in your own work?
No.
You can't, no. Okay, there was a dramatic pause there. So I'm going to say no, wink, wink, just in case any of them were listening right there.
I've certainly read a lot of books that I've gone, I wish I could write like that.
Is that why you got into writing? I know we're probably, as I said, I mentioned, we'll go off script, but is that sort of, having that kind of job and having to read so much of different people's work, is that kind of what got you into, you've read some and I could blow these out of the water, or I would really like to do that. And is that kind of what got you in there?
I think I would say that I've kind of always been a writer. So in the sense that, like, I've just always thought up stories and made up stories. And then throughout my kind of study, I learned how to technically write those stories.
Oh, okay.
And then the kind of technical writing kind of skills. And then I thought I want to also make up my own stories and have complete creative control, if that makes sense. So I've always read a lot. I think like most people who are in that, the creative space, we enjoy reading a lot and thinking about history and stuff like that. So that's always been part of my story reading and stuff like that. But I was actually a voice and dialect coach for 10 years before I turned myself to writing. So I like to say that I've always worked with words and wrangled words, but it started off actually being spoken words. So I would teach accents and dialects, or teach actors how to use their voice effectively when they're performing. And yeah, then I moved on to written words a little bit later.
That's almost like historical in the sense that we used to have a culture of verbal. Everyone sharing around, talking, and then we thought, hey, let's write this down,
Yeah, absolutely. And when you marry the two, like, it's really, really exciting when you get you get text that is written to be spoken, sort of thing. There's a very exciting moment when you get a text that's written to be spoken, and then it's spoken well, and sort of gives you goose pimples when that moment happens, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, sorry to disrupt the flow of everything. That was my fault, Jamie. I apologise.
No,
it happens, but
no, I know.
I just I jump in and when I see an opportunity, I'll take it. So thank you for answering that. I really appreciate that.
Well, let's crack into these icebreakers, the fun questions.
Yes,
I believe we've had 30 different answers to these questions. Some similar. Yeah, we've had 30 interviews, so statistically speaking.
And do be aware, if you do come back on, Jennifer, we don't just give you the same questions again, so we're not making it easy for you. We have extra ones and then extra ones and then extra ones and then So
there's only two sets. There's only two sets so far.
Okay, so if you make it onto the show 3 times, then you could be, having to.
Oh, we don't know what's going to happen then.
We do. It's chaos, butterfly effect.
Anything can happen.
I think that's one of the 4 signs of the apocalypse if someone makes it onto our podcast for a 3rd time. So there we go. But no, let's mix it up, Jamie. Why don't you take the first one?
Oh, are you sure? Because the third questions is your favorite.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm an equally caring podcast partner and sharing the love around, so that's fine.
Awesome. Are you ready?
I am ready. I am.
That wasn't the first question.
Oh, okay.
Just to let you know. Yes, are you ready? Okay, question 1. Yes, she is ready.
No. If you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be?
Household mold.
Okay.
Now, that might sound like a boring answer. And the answer,
I'm sure there's a story behind it.
Of a 40-something-year-old mother. That might sound like that kind of answer, but I feel like once you start talking about messing with, just getting rid of one thing, like you're going to mess up the system somehow, right? I don't feel like with household mold, which is the bane of my existence, which I would just like to not exist and obliterate. And I feel like if I were a superhero, household mold would be my nemesis, I don't feel like that's going to cause any unintended side effects, and I think everyone would be happy. So that's what I would get rid of.
I like it.
Unless in the process...
And you know what? I'm tired of people going, oh, world peace and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, give us your political answer. Yes, now we all know that you want to do the right thing. But I mean, if someone asked me that question, I'm not going to say world peace or anything like that. I'm going to be selfish and say something that affects me. So I can respect that.
Yeah, I feel like if I say I wanted to get rid of all war or something, there would be an unintended consequence of that.
Yeah.
And I would be causing more trouble 100%. Down the track.
I mean, that's straight from Community. They said, I wish to get rid of all wars. And they're like, whoa. All wars? No Star Wars? No.
Yeah, exactly.
There's always something to think about.
You got to think about these things. Yeah. And I reckon with mold, you're set. No one's going to be hurt.
I like that. Yeah. And who likes mold? No one likes mold. Just bugger it off and, make our lives a bit easier.
Hate it. Yeah.
So. All right. Well, question number 2. What is something on your bucket list?
I would like to hike over the Pyrenees from France into Spain, because I'm not like I wouldn't I wouldn't put myself down as like a super sporty person or anything like that. So I do love a good walk. But that route from France into Spain during World War II was an important escape route for World War II, for airmen who had been downed in occupied Europe, and they would sort of be smuggled across France down to the Pyrenees, and then they would make this journey in summertime when it wasn't too cold. And I'd like to do that in tribute to them. There was also a really sophisticated ring of women who and men as well, but women a lot of the time who helped to smuggle the men down to the border. So yeah, I'd like to do that in tribute to them.
I think that's a really good answer. I have a friend of mine who I used to work with. She does the Kokoda Trail every couple of years.
Really?
She does it. She just started doing a podcast after I gave her a bit of advice, and she tries to get over there once every 2 to 3 years to do the Kokoda Trail. And yeah, she say same kind of thing. She's like, it's so rewarding to see how vital and how people's lives were, in this case, they were saved, but obviously there was we know about the Kokoda Trail, a lot of guerrilla warfare and stuff like that. But she said it's something about it that it just touches you. It touches your heart, and to know what these people went through going down this trail and this terrain, for us to, for essentially to save their lives and to get out of a war. And I think that's a really great answer.
Yeah. It's a pretty phenomenal journey, and that's been made by remarkable people. So
yeah,
it would be cool to walk in their footsteps, I think.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
All right. Now let's laugh with some sitcoms. In your opinion, what's the greatest sitcom ever made?
I feel like this. I would like it if there was if I could name my top 3 or something like that in this case. But I will give you.
I think I will allow it.
You will allow
it. Fine, because there's a lot of. I mean, you got to think there's a lot of comedy, a lot of history. In the times that we're in now, so I would say definitely top 3 for sure.
Okay. So I'll go from the runners up first. I think the runners up for me would be the American Office, because genius and on lots of different levels, and can watch it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and just also I think it was super clever to take something that was really brilliant in the first place in terms of the UK office, but then spin it around, make it your own, and make it this hugely successful kind of show. I think that was pretty cool. I would put Community in there as well, because I love Community, and I never found the ridiculousness of it and the pop culture references and how much fun they must have had doing it makes me happy. And then I put Utopia in there as the Australian kind of entry.
Yeah.
But the greatest of all time for me would be Yes Minister, which is really old now.
Oh, wow. No,
but
I remember that.
It holds up like you wouldn't believe. As someone who's working in Canberra now, I can see it. It's gold still.
Yeah. I'd have to say that's for the first answer that I've had that I haven't actually. That's I've seen Utopia. I love Utopia. I love I love all the traditional Australian ones like Frontline and all those brilliant working dog and shows we got. But I've never actually seen Yes Minister, so I might have to check it out. We keep hearing rumblings of it, but it's getting a bit of interest in my head. So
yeah, I don't know. It's pretty old now. I reckon.
But it ended the year I was born.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh wow, that is really old.
You'll have to find it on VHS somewhere.
I have my ways of finding things.
Yeah.
I'm sure the BBC will play it or something, but it's
Oh, yeah.
The bureaucracy is never goes away, despite how old the show is. Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. But no, The Office again. Office is definitely one of my favourites. It's in my top two.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the actors we got from it, we got Steve Carell, we got John Krasinski, who's one of my all-time favourites.
He's quite
Ryan
lovely.
Wilson. So many different amazing, and the fact that you have to watch it on DVD now because the streaming services are pulling episodes because you just can't get away with that kind of stuff anymore. Is a sign of a good show. So that and Scrubs are the two that I own on DVD, massive collections, because they're like Jamie will know, Jamie Scrubs being one of Jamie's all-time favourite, the music is just not, it's not the same unless you're watching it on DVD because on streaming they just don't have the rights anymore or something like that, isn't it?
They had to do all the music for streaming, and
it's not the same.
And you can tell you going, this is
wow.
If you watch it on Disney Plus, and then if you've got it on DVD, there's a massive difference. I would definitely recommend it if you can get it on DVD to check it out on DVD rather than watch it on Disney Plus.
Really? Okay, because Scrubs is one that is on my kind of list of people have said,
I try and track it down.
This. Yeah.
I bought the whole collection, all 9 seasons, for I think $40. So it's not outrageously expensive.
8 seasons.
Jamie doesn't like the last season, but
really controversial.
It's not outrageous. But yeah, The Office is the same. They've taken out I think at least 6 episodes from streaming in Australia. Yeah, the Chris Rock episode is no longer available on where Michael Scott does the impression of Chris Rock in the first season. Diversity Day, yeah. Really? They took that out because it's just kind of racist. But yeah, it's just it's one of those shows that you because it was set a while ago, and people, the way that the current political temperature is with people and how sensitive people are, people don't want to take a chance with it. So that's another one I do own on DVD, and that is the only way I will ever watch it because it's the only way you can get the full experience.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did notice they'd taken away the Dungeons and Dragons episode of a Community on the streaming service.
Yeah, because of the blackface elf. Elf, I will say.
Yeah.
It's Ken Jeong's I mean, come on. But that's a whole nother podcast. We won't. Like I can go on for about 75 years about that. But yeah, look, Community is amazing. What they do with those the lava episodes and it's just I was lucky enough that I discovered it when I think there was already 5 seasons out. So I got to enjoy
all of it. Yeah.
I didn't have to wait for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just it's a rewatch. I could watch that over and over and over and again.
Yeah, me too. And just the I discovered it in the same way, and I think season 4 was dodgy. But I just binge watched all the way through to season 5, and then had to wait with everyone else. So I feel like 6 seasons in a movie, I can totally get behind the movie when it comes out.
100%.
We actually had a guest on the podcast about a year ago who's a comic book writer, and he worked on a comic book with the guy that was Abed was named after.
Yeah.
Like, so the real Abed, who apparently is nothing like the character at all. They just took his name, but he's still named after the...
But before we move on to the next question, I will give a shout out to a sitcom that I'm watching at the moment for probably like the 50th time. It's Kim's Convenience. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Kim's Convenience?
No.
Oh my God, seriously. It's so basically it's set in Canada. It's about a convenience store run by a Korean family called the Kims. It's on Netflix, 5 seasons. You will absolutely laugh your ass off the whole way through. We're watching it because I'm not working at the moment. We're watching it like it's only 20-minute episodes, so it's easy to just watch, smash through it. And we're up to season 3 again, and it is. I just because I'm watching it and I forgot how good it was. I just have to give it a mention on the show. It's so good. So yeah, there you go. Check it if you got Netflix and got a spare weekend. Just check it out. If you like the community, if you like the stuff that you like, you will absolutely love Kim's Convenience.
Excellent. I'll check it out.
So there, cool. Yeah. I thought I would just give them not that they sponsor the show, although I'd absolutely love it, but it's a really, really great show. And speaking of good shows, what would be your zombie apocalypse plan if a zombie outbreak were to happen tomorrow?
Oh my goodness. I don't have a lot of zombie apocalypse plan. I don't have a lot of zombie apocalypse kind of knowledge in my head. So I feel like my plan would be, as is my plan in life generally, to stick near my husband. So because they can get him first.
And he's very, very tall.
Oh, okay.
He's tall.
Not so that he can help you, but just so they can get him first.
Well, he has played The Last of Us many times. I feel like he would be.
I already like the guy already.
he would be like on top of what it would mean. My experience with zombies is limited to Shaun of the Dead, and so I mean, yes. I'm not sure that would be very helpful as a primer for what to do in a zombie apocalypse.
Well, go down the pub.
Not when the end of the not when the end of the movie is to have your best mate who's a zombie chained up in the shed so you can play video games even when he's a zombie. So that's Don't get me started on Simon Pegg and Nick Frost because that's another podcast episode we'll do. They're brilliant men. But we have most people from Australia. They do what I would do, and I go to Bunnings. Go to Bunnings, lock myself in. I mean, you've got sausage sizzles. You've got as many tools and axes and things to mutilate and murder. and then look, when food gets scarce, you just invite the local scout troop down to do a sausage sizzle, and there you got enough food to last you for a little while, and off you go.
I agree. You've got big roller doors that you can shut.
Exactly. See, that's all right. You can come and join me in my Bunnings world, and we'll be fine. Bring your husband. Anyone's welcome to Bunnings, and unless you're a zombie, then sorry, we're gonna have to kick you out.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
during the pandemic.
Jamie gets. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say what your question reminded me of was that during the pandemic, my favorite kind of meme, and one of the best things the internet ever gave me at that point was this meme, like a sort of series of photographs that someone had done, where they were dressed up in full-on prepper zombie apocalypse gear, like they had the face mask and they had the guns on their back and whatever, but they were just sitting around the house really bored, and so they just had it was hashtag I was told there would be zombies. That's what I thought. Maybe it won't end with like zombies. It'll just end with us all bored inside our houses or something.
Well, I think COVID got us as close as we've ever been to a sort of a zombie outbreak. When you see, I remember driving past Blacktown because I used to be an Uber driver. And during the pandemic, we were still, obviously, people still need to get places. So the business was booming because people didn't want to go in a train of 100 people. They wanted to just get. So the amount of times I drive past Blacktown Hospital, which is our local hospital here, and it looked like the site of, you watch The Walking Dead or what happened before the outbreak, tents and people in hazmat suits. And it is very, very scary. And you're just like, wow, is this how it all starts? Is this how the beginning of the end starts? You know what I mean?
My favorite pandemic meme was the two circles, and one said apocalypse, and the other one said having to go to work, and they're joined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
That's that was scary. But luckily, we stayed inside for 2 weeks, and everything was fine. So we're all good. But in terms of that, because we do want to get through, we want to start talking about you and your lovely book. Jamie, you get to ask my favorite question. So this is how kind I'm being to you. My favorite question of all time.
I think this is the perfect question for our guest. because it's historical.
We kind of know
in a
the
way.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mr. Elon Musk calls you up and says, Jennifer, I know you're a fan of history. I've invented this electric time machine for you to test drive. What do you do? Where do you go?
Well, firstly, I check. It's Elon Musk, right? So I check that the time machine is going to bring me back to the current time, because I won't want to get stuck in history, I don't think. But I would go back to the Second World War, and I would...
Didn't see that coming at all. Did not see that coming at all. I said to Jamie, Jamie, I bet you she's going to go to like Vietnam War or World War One, or even into the future, World War Three, which is going to happen soon. I did not see you going to World War Two.
Maybe I would go back, maybe not into World War II, because lots of terrible things happened as well as remarkable, brave things. But maybe I'd go back to like 1939 and just before September and warn them and say, guys, pay attention.
Would you though? Because then you could come back and we could all have donuts for heads or something. Because the butterfly effect. Always remember the butterfly effect, you know?
True. Yeah. Yeah. So I would go back. I certainly wouldn't want to stay there, but I do spend a lot of my time reading about the war and social histories about the war, and so I would jump at the chance to live a bit of life there and see and experience what it was like for people in Britain in World War II.
Do you think? I know you said you sort of like to go back to 1939. Do you think it would be a good idea to go in serious? If we're being as serious as we can be, would you prefer to go back to before, or maybe just like a year after, or 6 months after the end of World War II, so you could see, like you said, you wanted to see what kind of effect it had on people at the time. Do you think that'd be more of a what you'd be after?
Yeah, actually, well, what would be fascinating is going back. So we see the war as like 1939 to 1945, but we actually know that even though the hostilities ceased on the whatever days in history in May and in August, depending on which theatre it was, we actually know that kind of like the pandemic, these things have a long tail.
Exactly, definitely.
And we think about that final date of 1945, but actually 1946, there's still, especially in light of the pandemic and sort of seeing these long tails on things, it would be really interesting to see what effects of the war were in 46 and 47.
Yeah.
And then there's that story about that Japanese guy that was, I don't know which war it was, but he was on an island somewhere, still active for like 30 years.
Yeah.
He didn't believe that the war was over, and they had to get his general or whoever his commander was to go to that island and tell him it's over, you know?
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
It's dedication to the cause, isn't it?
I know, right? Well, that brings us to the end of the icebreaker section. Thank you very, very much for being candid and honest and answering those. We like to, it's a nice way to warm up and give our listeners a chance to get to know you and get to know, what you're all about and a bit about, your personality. But yeah, now we get onto the nitty gritty, why you're actually here.
In 1932, the Australian Army declared war on 20,000 emus and lost. It's a part of Australian history that not many know about. Maybe that's because history is written by those who win. So if you want to hear the full story of the Great Emu War of 1932, then check out my book, Letters from the Emu War. Read letters, newspaper articles, and journal entries. With every turn of the page, you will gain a deeper understanding of the life and times of emus at war. So head on over to jabryden.com and grab a signed copy today.
Obviously, we did touch on where it all started, but can you remember your very earliest memories of sort of, you said you like to read a lot, but when you actually realized, you know what, I really kind of think that this is what I want to do. When did it really become a passion that you think, you know what, I'm going to start putting words down? And was it through, school to a history kind of sense, or where did it all start?
Yeah, well, I think history at school was really, really important for me. We had a quote on our staff room door of the history department that was, and I think it's a Churchill quote because that man has very many quotable quotes, but those who are ignorant of history are doomed to repeat its mistakes.
Repeat it?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, I think that was a sort of really embedded in me to make sure we're always looking to the past and thinking about the past, but and learning and not being ignorant of it, making sure we're avoiding the mistakes. But probably where this book, my first book, began, and sort of the idea that I really want to explore World War II in multiple stories, probably began with understanding more about my grandfather's experience in World War II. So my grandfather was a Lancaster bomber pilot in World War II. So that, I mean, maybe that means something to you, maybe it means something to your listeners, but what it means to me is that he was a young man. He was 22, 23, and he volunteered he actually was a New Zealander, so he volunteered for the New Zealand Air Force. He learnt to fly. He was on his way to Singapore when Singapore fell, and he got diverted to the UK. And there he learnt to fly. Like Lancasters are like this iconic aircraft of World War II. And they're like this really cumbersome plane on the ground, but very elegant in the sky. And the bombers that the RAF had in the beginning weren't really up for the job that they'd been given, which was to go, attack Germany. So, the Allies had held off the Germans in the Battle of Britain, and the bombers were sort of taking the fight back to Germany. And the planes weren't up to scratch at the beginning, but when the Lancaster came along, it was sort of a bit of a turning point. And my grandfather, like 10,000 other Australians and like 125,000 other men, was part of a crew in one of these planes. They would fly low and slow over enemy territory, under fire the whole time, in sub-zero temperatures, drop their bombs, some of them would hold steady for another 30 seconds while they took a photograph to make sure that their bombs were on target, and then they would nick off at home as fast as they could. Of the 125,000 men who flew in a crew in Bomber Command, almost half of them died, which meant it's a toss of a coin whether or not they come home. And if they did come home, they saw friends fall out of the sky. If they were at home, they saw that the people who went out didn't always come home. Yeah. I find that incredibly moving to think that people went and did that. I'm not sure. That's actually quite a noble sacrifice, really, when you think about it, because those men, the ones who survived, were often, and this is true in my grandfather's case, really, that impacts you for the rest of your life when something like that happens. Of course,
yeah. PTSD and especially when you say that many, 50%. One day you're sitting around having a feed with your mates, and then the next day you come back and potentially half of them are gone. I mean, that can affect any. Yeah, wow.
And also the work that they were doing was not, it was work that they had, they were commanded to do as part of the armed forces. Yeah. So they did it under those circumstances. But in the end, this strategy of strategic bombing, that it was called, during the war, especially, after the war was won, it was really questioned as like, basically you destroyed half of Europe in order to defeat Hitler. We're very glad we've defeated Hitler, but let's not talk about the fact that we actually have destroyed a lot of Europe.
Yeah.
And certainly my grandfather's case, that was like that affected him for the rest of his life. He was involved in raids that caused a lot of damage, documented caused a lot of damage and a lot of casualties, and it never sat right with him for the rest of his life. Mm. And then that trickles down to the next generation and whatnot. So
no, I had my great grandfather, Tom Delaunay, was part of I think it was World War I, part of the Rats of Tobruk. He was part of those soldiers that were taken and had to spend a very long time in a POW camp. Like he was, I knew him as, obviously I knew him as one person, but my grandmother said before he went away, he was the nicest, caring, most loving guy, big burly, wouldn't hurt a fly, and he'd give you big hugs and everything. And then when he came back after that, he was half the size of he was. And just he ended up, lasting a very long time. Unfortunately, some of his mates ended up taking their own lives because of what they went through. But she just said, she goes, I really wish, she used to tell me, I really wish you could have known the man that he was, because it's the same thing, I mean, how do you live with what they have to go through and the sacrifices that they made so that we've got the life that we've got today?
Yeah, and I think that humans rally and are resilient, and everyone has a different kind of experience of these things. But it was sort of thinking about my grandfather's experience and researching that, and coming across this story in history that hadn't ended well for the couple involved. And I thought, I want to write them a happy ending. And so that's kind of where my most recent book, my debut book, was that's where that began.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll segue into, because before we dive into everything and all about the book and all that, we just want to know some of your influences. Who are your favorite authors? Where do you draw inspiration from in your writing style, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, okay, so favorite authors. There's two. I read a lot, and I read fiction and non-fiction. But I'm going to put down as two of my favorite authors for different reasons. So there's a writer called Sarah Sundin, and she writes World War II romance. It's very similar to me. But she's an American, and so she's writing she's writing about the American Armed Forces. But her research, man, I had a chat with her, and she is just like, my notes are all over the place. I've got like notebooks, and then I've got a little bit of my Scrivener file, and then I've got like this Word document with a whole lot of links pasted into it. But man, her research is like, hang on, let me just draw up my bibliography for you. And like, here are my researches. This is just on the American Navy. And it's like, oh my goodness. So her research is very thorough, and that comes through in her book, but also her process, like the writer's process behind it. I'm like, Horrie, you're amazing. So she is definitely one of my big influences. And then there's another American author called Rosanna M. White, and she writes for the Christian market in the United States. And I dabble in that genre. I write in that genre now, but it's because I read her book, and I read this book that had such an authentic kind of faith to the character that didn't mean that the plot was diminished and the character was diminished, and it was so beautifully romantic as well. And I'd never seen anything written for the not that I had this at that time had this massive kind of experience of of the Christian fiction market, but I'd certainly never come across anything that had all those things, like had an exciting plot and had these deep characters and had this like authentic, not preachy kind of faith arc to it, and also like just turn page, and with Sweeney romance and everything like that. So so she was a big influence, because once I read her, I thought, this can be done. It can be this is great. So I would put those down as my influences. And also, you know, there's a few Australians, Kelly Rimmer, Kate Morton, their kind of prose is, you know, you might, you know, aspire to write prose like them, I think. So those, so literary speaking, those would be my influences, I suppose. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does now. No. Open for interpretation, like a lot of history.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what came first? All the research, or did you have a developing plot for this book? How did you approach it?
I wrote romance. So what came first was this kiss that I had.
My.
I know, right? I will say I write the sweet.
Hopefully with your husband, I'm guessing.
Well, do you know about the scales of romance?
I know. Okay, so what I know about romance writing is there's usually a guy on the front cover with no shirt on, very windswept, long hair blowing in the wind. The woman is normally draped across his leg. He's normally a pirate, a farmer's boy, or a some sort of Civil War revolutionary or something like that. And the titles usually don't make sense, and they go on for about 7.5 pages. That's
like the Billionaire Secret
novel.
Nanny.
Yeah. And then normally, you know, like the guys look like Fabio on the front cover, and it's either no shirt or the shirt's open like buttons, and you know his boobies are out. So yeah,
man,
that's what I know about romance writing.
Well, Jamie.
I only know about emu romance writing.
Way to plug yourself, Jamie. Excellent.
I'm just saying.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting. How are you going to work emus into romance? But then you would find a way.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Technically, I wrote historical fiction. I'm just saying.
Did you write a book, Jamie? I never would have guessed. Never would have guessed you wrote a book, Jamie. After once I write a book. When I write a book, I'm going to plug it with every ounce of myself. But anyway, continue.
Anyway,
that's what you're going to do.
Enlighten us about the levels of romance.
Look, so romance is a very wide. Think of romance as a genre, more like Netflix. So it's got something for everyone, and it's got every different taste you can imagine, including the long-haired, shirtless guy, windswept guys, I suppose. But
Henry Cavill.
Sort of like, there's sort of like a scale of heat in romance, right? And so you got this is like widely discussed among romance writers. This is not a secret. So you've got at number 0, you've got like Amish romance, which is where they might glance across a crowded room at each other, and then at number 5. It's usually like Flames or Chili Peppers or something that they relate to. Number 5, it's like, erotic romance or whatever. It's got everything.
Probably Rebecca Cassells, Ryan. Just
and the Rising Dawn series available now on Amazon.
There you go. Plug in our sponsor.
Absolutely. Something for everyone, as I say. Yeah. But mine are like 1.5 like levels of heat. So that's like a few toe curling kisses in there.
So
and
like,
that's
what is it? What's the movie? Wedding Singer, Church Tongue. That scene.
Yeah.
Oh, Jamie.
Okay.
It just came to me, right?
First. what came first was this kind of moment that I'd researched in history around a crew who'd come home from Germany, and there's something wrong with their elevator control of their plane, which meant they couldn't adjust the height, and they had to do all these other kind of manipulations of the controls in order to land the plane. And they ended up doing it they had the runways cleared. They ended up doing it while the pilot's girlfriend was watching from the radio control tower, and they were radioing into the control tower. And in history, it didn't work out very well. And I thought to myself, I would love to write those people, but I don't really know anything about them. I want to write that happy ending. I want to write that kiss after they survive that plane crash. And so that's kind of in the book. I mean, the people, it's my made up people that I sort of wrote into that story. It's not really about that, but that came first, that story and that romance. And that's what World War II kind of has as a setting. It's got all these amazing kind of moments that you can set a romance against. And so it's kind of what came first.
Cool.
So I've got a question that's not on the books. Did you actually? And I like to ask this. Obviously, yes, it's a romance story, but it's also a historical romance story set in World War II times. Did you actually go, aside from researching online, which is amazing, and we can find out everything we need to know about everyone, did you actually go out to any sites or obviously living in Canberra, you've got, the Australian War Museum, the War Memorial there, which is fantastic. But did you actually go out and talk to people, or did you actually go and visit any particular sites? Not necessarily overseas, but, to get kind of a vibe of that time that you could set this story in?
Well, in a sense, yes. So I did go to England in 2019. So it's set on a bomber command station in Lincolnshire, which is where all the bomber stations were in 1942. And I did go to England in 2019, and I was writing this book when this book was a very different book to the book that it turned out to be. And so I actually went and looked at a few places in the West Country, because I thought that that's where the book was going to be set at that point. So that's like Devon and Cornwall and whatnot. And so I didn't end up going to Lincolnshire and whatnot. I wish that I had, because very soon after I got home, the borders were closed. And I haven't been able to go back.
That magical COVID.
Yeah. But that being said, we do have some great resources in Australia for visiting, and the War Memorial has, like, the Lancaster
they do.
bomber, the G. George bomber is in the War Memorial. So, could go and see that, which is, like, it's really quite tactile going up to see a beast of a machine like that. So yeah, that was good. I wish there's some amazing, what I would love to do is there are some amazing air shows in England with every summer they hold them, and they have reenactors who I've started following on Instagram. And in fact, one of the look, this is the book, Heart in the Clouds. And this is Maggie, my heroine, if you like. But it's actually a costumed reenactor from one of the air shows in England. And she is, her name's, her Instagram handle is the 1940s Adventuress. And she's got lots of WAF uniforms. And like the kind of all these other reenactors, they collect the uniforms, they're living historians, they make sure that everything's kind of right. And then they go and, reenact being air crews at events and stuff like that. I wish I had gone to that. That's on my bucket list. I would love to do that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm the same. I love reenactments. There used to be a festival over the mountains, again, killed by COVID, called Iron Fest, and it was World War II reenactments, Civil War reenactments. They'd get a little bit funny with a tank versus a horse in the jousting, where you ride past and you've got to spin the timber thing around so many times. The tank could go past with the joust, but it was fantastic.
So they had World War II at Iron Fest. Actually, I mean, it's not a thing anymore, is it? But
no, they were struggling before COVID.
Yeah,
I don't know why, because there was that many people there all the time. A guy 2 or 3 houses up from me, he used to go and drive. He had a little it wasn't a tank, it was like wasn't quite a Jeep, but it was a military vehicle from World War II, and he'd drive up there and show off his car and stuff.
Yeah. They say it's very, very hard to come by that sort of stuff in Australia now. It feels like. So, if your listeners are World War II reenactors, can they get in touch and tell me where I can go to see that in Australia? That'd be awesome.
Yes. Yes, if there's any fans of history out there, please send us an email to thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. And we'll pass any info on to Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about the characters. Obviously, there's Maggie.
Yes.
So who's the flyboy? Is he Tom Cruise?
Henry Cavill?
Almost. He's like the Henry Cavill of his day, I reckon.
Oh my God!
I buy the book now.
That's
right.
twice. That's twice, because our sponsor's got a character modelled off Henry Cavill. Are you saying you've modelled one off Henry Cavill?
I did. I did.
Why would you not?
That's right. I mean,
why would you not?
He's a very
that
attractive
man is not human.
Well, so his 1940s equivalent is Clark Gable. And so my character looks like Clark Gable very much. And he thinks he's all that. And so he's an Australian bomber pilot. He's just sort of moved to a different station. And on a night out, he meets our heroine, Maggie, and it's a romance. So she's immediately drawn to him, but she's just had a bad breakup. So she's like, look, if I can just get through this night and not talk to this guy, I'll just never have to worry about him again, and I'll go off and do my job and it'll be fine, except he's been transferred to the same air station as her. So she ends up having to speak to him all the time. Now, he makes some bad choices, I'm going to say, because he makes a bet that he can get this girl who really doesn't want to have anything to do with him to kiss him before the end of the year as a bet with his air crew. And it's a despicable thing to do, just putting that out there. But
I'd say it's historically accurate. Just saying.
I think there was a bit of that going on. Yeah. And but he ends up getting so much more, I suppose, than he bargained for within that. And she's not impressed with that behaviour at all. So she's not having a bar of that kind of thing. But it's in pursuing her that he sort of starts to think about more about purpose and meaning and why he's in the war and whatnot. I don't know how much I should say.
Well, it's your book. I think teasing works well. Just a little bit of, you don't want to give away the whole movie like a Marvel trailer.
Well, it's a romance, so everyone knows how it's going to end. But there's a few surprises, and there's a lot of kind of, if you love historical detail, as I do in my books, then there's all these details of living and working on a bomber command station. There's a lot of food details, because one of the things I do in my content and copywriting is recipe development and food writing. And so I'm just super interested in the food of the day and looking through all the historical recipes and whatnot. So there's a bit of food detail as well as life on a bomber station, and that kind of military detail of the Air Force. I like my people are made up, but my events and places are real. So,
So, are there actual references to real events that happen? Like, is there a timeline an exact timeline that this is based around?
Yeah, absolutely. So 467 Squadron is the squadron that Alec is part of. And if you know your World War II history, 467 Squadron is an Australian, like an RAAF squadron that was formed in the end of 1942 and disbanded in 1945. So it is just in that period of the war. And the behind the scenes detail of the book is that everything in relating to 467 Squadron is true. So it took, they had terrible weather at first, and their first air raid was laying mines, and they did partake in this first air raid over Essen, which sort of kicked off the main portion of the Battle of the Ruhr, which is the industrial area over Germany during the war. So yeah, all that sort of historical detail is absolutely true to the timing of 467 Squadron.
And you just inserted your characters into that era.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
I geek out on those sort of details. Like,
you're not alone.
Can you tell?
You're not alone. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about this book?
Look, if you like historical fiction, you'll like it. If you like sweet romance, you'll like it. If you don't, so there is a kind of a thread of, I'm going to call it, there is a thread of faith going through this book. So if you enjoy those big questions about meaning and purpose, and then you'll like this book, I think. A lot of the reviews have said that the characters feel like friends. And I mean, it's such a compliment, right? When you're a writer, if people have said that, you know, they don't want to leave your people and they wonder about your people and your people.
You get that investment in those characters. Yeah.
But imaginary friends, like I, wake up in the early morning to sort of play with these imaginary friends before my children get up each day. So it's that kind of book. It's historical detail, sweet romance. That's what I have to say. But this is the cover. Sort of sums it up all, really. That's what I have to say. That's all I have to say, I think.
Awesome.
Buy it.
Well, before we get to like where we can get it, where our listeners can follow you, all that kind of thing. Are you working on anything else at the moment? Are you working on another book, perhaps, or is there anything you can talk about there?
What's the next historical setting you're going to go into?
What's the next project?
Well, I couldn't. They are my historical friends, so I couldn't entirely let them go. So I had to. A sequel there. I had to write there's a character called Grace who's Maggie's best friend in this, and I had to give her own story.
Spin-off.
So yes, indeed. And so that is set not at a bomber command station, but at it's a made up setting of a map making facility. So during World War II, there was a top secret military facility where they made the maps that the bomber pilots used, and they got the reconnaissance photo, they stripped out all the details, and they painted the maps in like purple, which the pilots could see in the dark cockpits, and they just had the detail of where you need to hit, not the schools, not the churches, not anything else, just the topographical details and where they needed to hit. And that was so top secret that no one knew that it had existed until the 1990s, when a guy who had worked there brought his grandchild and was telling him about, like it was a house open to the public, was telling him about what he did during the war, and was overheard by one of the tour guides. And that's when all these stories came out about how this facility had been used. And so my facility is not quite as top secret as that, but it definitely has that. And someone has been sent to spy on Grace because they think she's leaking secrets. And my American, who has been sent to spy on her, can't help but fall in love with her.
Oh,
Excellent.
awesome.
But there's more to it than that. You know,
Of course, yeah.
Well,
how do you uncover her secrets without blowing your cover or falling in love? I think is the hook there.
awesome. Look, there's just one little subtopic I want to talk about before we let you go. Just came to me because look, I'm a diehard fan of history. We have a friend who's a filmmaker, Matthew Holmes. Matthew, if you're watching, hello. He's done a fantastic movie called The Legend of Ben Hall, which was like 8 years ago. I think it came out. But he's like me that when I watch a movie that's a historical movie and things start to, that's not right. That's not like, do you get annoyed when you watch history stuff and you're going like, that's not accurate? Is that what you, do you have that mindset too?
Yeah, I do. And I'm, you know, when I'm writing, I would hate to think that anyone had that sort of feeling about my book, if that makes sense. So yeah, I like at least when they call out if they're doing something that is anachronistic or something, they're giving you a reason why.
Yeah, but they rarely never do.
No, they don't.
No,
they don't.
So, Pearl Harbour, yay or nay?
I did watch it recently.
You did watch it? Oh wow, okay.
And I just there's actually something about that film that is so bad it's good. In the sense that I watch it and go, I know I shouldn't enjoy this because there's so many anachronisms.
It's the romance, right? Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Yeah. I think my favourite one was not to do with the military, but it's to do with the fact that she's a nurse at the beginning. And like when she's a nurse, like she's giving injections or whatever else she's doing, she's got this hair flowing down, this little cap and this hair flowing down.
Yeah.
And then she goes on a night out and she's all tied up. And I'm like, actually, no. It would have been whatever's in your head, Michael Bay. It would have been the opposite in real life. But anyway.
Did you watch Midway?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that as a film.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it didn't have enough romance for me. So maybe that's why I don't enjoy Pearl Harbour so much. But no, I mean, I think they kind of got the state that they got all the beats of history in that. As far as I know, I don't know a great deal about Midway necessarily, but I think that they sort of reacted to Pearl Harbour and went, let's just cut the romance because it got so much flack in Pearl Harbour. Let's just focus on the planes.
I think it was the answer to Pearl Harbour.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, one more thought, because I want this to be a movie, and it's really hard to find a book on it. But there was a guy called, have you heard of Mad Jack Churchill?
No.
He fought in World War II with a bow and arrow and a broadsword. Like he was the own, like, I don't know where he was. He was British.
Or,
I'll you know what? I'll find out right now, and I'll edit it. It's just Mad Jack Churchill.
Churchill, awesome.
I just fascinated with it. Like he escaped a POW camp. And he was he got it. The war was over by the time he escaped, and then he remembered he said something along the lines of, this war would still be going if not for those darn Americans. Or something like that. So he enjoyed fighting.
Yes, okay. Tally ho. Something. Wow.
British Columbia. He died aged 89 in 1996.
Wow. Wow. And
It was
so
definitely World War II.
broadsword and
a bow and arrow. He's the
bow
only
and
one.
arrow.
He's the only one with a confirmed bow kill in World War II, for obvious reasons. To make it easier on the listeners, I'll find an article. I'll put the link in the show notes and I'll forward it to you, Jennifer. But
Jamie, I
fascinating.
reckon that's your next project. I reckon after your emus, the emu war, you can focus on Mad Jack. That'd be awesome.
Mad Jack, yeah. I do love the story of Horrie, the war dog, as well.
Yeah, refresh my memory on that one. I know a few war dog ones.
Terrier. He was a terrier. In World War II. He was found in Egypt, and he'd listened to the planes fly. He could hear the planes coming before they got bombed, so it was saved a lot of people. But then he got smuggled back into Australia.
Yeah,
because as you know, animals are not allowed on the ships to come back home. So they trained this little, Jack Russell-sized dog to stay in an army pack and be completely quiet. And he got him all the way back to Australia. Then they found out that they got him all the way back to Australia, and they said, you got to put him down. But the guy...
I'm so glad you said but.
But the guy said, he fought against it, said, look, I've been to the vet, like there's no diseases or anything, but this is not, you still got to put him down. So what he actually did is he swapped him with a dog from the pound. And so he wasn't happy about it, but this is a war hero dog, and he's just like, so they put down a different dog. And he lived a long, happy life.
That's fantastic.
But I want to see that as a movie too. But
yeah.
With Henry Cavill as the dog.
In case you can't tell, we reference Henry Cavill a lot in this podcast.
I will say I think maybe it was the episode just before this one, or the one of your most recent ones. It was called something about shirtless Cavill.
Shirtless Cavill, yes.
Yeah.
That's our main
Ain't
show.
nothing wrong with that.
For those listening, we do have 3 types of episodes on this podcast. We have a comic book podcast called The Middle Ages Comic Hour. We have our main show with our good friend Chris, who you may probably know, Jennifer, seeing we grew up in the same circles.
Chris.
He does. Yeah, we can't say his last name because he's got a stage name.
Right.
But you know what? I'll say it now and I'll bleep it out.
Yes, I thought that I was about to say that.
Yeah. So he's on the main show. He's on the main show, and he's very controversial and makes weird jokes. And I basically just pick a title out of something that we say within the episode, the long episode. Yeah, and then obviously we do story chat as well.
Cool.
And we like to go on tangents, as people probably know from this episode.
Well, tangents are the best, right? Like, I don't know, a good bit of chat is always a good thing, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Let our listeners and our viewers know where can they buy Heart in the Clouds?
Well, it's available wide. So it's available from all the online retailers, including the big Amazon. And you can also buy it from me if you're in Australia from my website, which is jennifermistmorgan.com.
Awesome. We'll put all of that information in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming on.
Thank you. I've had a great chat. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, as always.
You're very welcome.
As always, if you want to reach out, if you're an author and you want to come on the podcast, thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. Check out our Instagram, stories_podcast, and we will catch you next time.
See you next time.